I'm here with JoAnn and Jesse Martinez at their lovely home that's all decorated and ready for Christmas. And we're here today to discuss the potential of a frac sand transloading facility being put in just down the street, literally, how many feet would you say?
I'm going to say about 150 to 200 feet, just across the street, literally.
Literally is true,
Yes.
not far away at all. How did you first hear, how did the news come to you that this was even be a possibility?
Well, it was kind of piecemeal to us. About 3 months ago, we noticed some activity going on behind the Mayfield Paper Company here to my right, and the roofing companies that are already existing there. And we saw some construction or something being done with that area right behind these existing businesses. And so we started asking questions as to, what it could be. We had no particular notion or idea of what was to come. It wasn't until JoAnn's friend mentioned something to her, and I let her explain what came about then.
Well, it was just a normal day at work, and one of the gentlemen from Mayfield is one of our sales reps, and he came in, and I just happened to ask him, hey, what's going on back there behind you guys? Are y'all expanding, or what's going on? And he said no, that it was going to be what he understood a fracking sand facility. And so I was like, wow, how is that going to happen? I mean, that's the middle of town. How is that going to be able to be put in there? And he wasn't quite sure on the details. And so I came home and, immediately, hey, Jesse, this is going on across the street from our house. We've got to do something, call somebody, find out what's going on, because this is not a good thing. We can't let this happen. And so
I called our council member, Johnny Silvas, and who happens to be a good friend of ours, and I said, Johnny, can you tell me what's going on behind here, behind Hill Street? And he says, what are you talking about? And immediately that kind of raised a little suspicion in my mind. I said, well, Johnny, they're clearing up this land here, and I understand there's going to be some kind of sand, fracking sand, something having to do with the oil industry, etc. And I'm concerned about that because I had heard previously that the silica sand is harmful, and then you'd have other negative type of activity going on. So I said, I don't know what is happening, but maybe you can find out. And he assured me, I'm going to make a few phone calls and I'll let you know. So a couple of days later, he did call. He was true to his word. He calls back and says, Jesse, there is going to be a fracking facility, sand transport depot that is being proposed there. Mr. Lee Pfluger owns that land, etc. And there's nothing you can do about it. I said, Johnny, what do you mean there's nothing we can do about it? Has there been any notification to the neighborhood, to the residences? Normally when something like this happens, there's notice to the residences. Are you in favor? Are you opposed? I mean, you're welcome to come and share your opinion. And he said, no, there's nothing you can do. It's a done deal. So I said, well, I don't think that that's the way it should be, but keep looking and finding out to see what else can happen. A couple of days later, we ran into Mayor Morrison at another event, and I asked him the same question. And it's a funny story that his wife, what did she tell me?
she said, now, Jesse, leave him alone. He can't do anything about it. Just leave him alone.
Anyway, I said, Mayor, I understand there's this sand depot facility that's going to be placed right on Hill Street. I just live a block away from it. I think me and the neighbors, we're not in agreement with it. How did this happen? Without any permits, or, I mean, what's going on? And he says, yes, there's going to be this facility, and the only thing I think that you can do is maybe get TCEQ to stop it. That's the only way that that can happen. The city council, can't do anything about it. but you're welcome to come to the city council and speak your concern and say what you have to say. And I said, well, what good is that going to do? He says, well, that's where you start. But really, my advice is that you get a hold of the TCEQ people and make your argument with them.
Did you give them a call?
Not at that point, not yet. First thing I did was appear before the city council. I don't know how long ago that was. It seems like forever now. But I spoke against, you know, the putting in of the facility. And that was that at that point. And about 2 or 3 days later, some Santa Rita folks appeared, and we kind of got together and started talking about what we can do to fight this thing, to keep it from coming in. And we formed a little group. Of course, they have the Santa Rita Homeowners Association. We're not organized in that fashion, but we call ourselves the Fort Concho edition on this side of the freeway. And I immediately began speaking to neighbors, and neighbors came knocking on the door, says, hey, what's going on? What's happening? What can we do about it? I said, well, I'm not too sure yet, but there's several things that we might can have happen. Subsequently, I did get a hold of the TCEQ representative here in town. And he basically was a very nice gentleman. I forget his name. Welcomed me into his office, shared with me rules, regulations about you know, air quality and so on and so forth, and how you can make an appeal. I said, well, there's nothing to appeal because the facility is not there yet.
Right.
I want to know how I can prevent it from getting in. And he basically told me there's nothing that TCEQ could do because the city had already designated it as a light manufacturing
Facility.
operation, and therefore they could do what they call permit by rule and put in all the equipment and continue with their building and their preparations and not have to apply for any at all permits or get any permission from anybody. It was a done deal once again, and TCEQ could not do anything about it because it was already permitted by rule. So that's where that stood. And I went and talked to Patrick Howard, the city manager, and he tells me kind of the same story in reverse. His position was, well, TCEQ says it's okay because there's nothing that the city can do, therefore, because TCEQ can't do anything about it, so therefore it just moves forward. And I said, well, Patrick, I have a problem with that. I really don't think that this is appropriate. This is a good thing for the city. And who made the decision? And he says, I did. And I just asked the question, well, did you consult with anyone? Did you study this in any form or fashion? Did you do any research? And he says, well, I'm very qualified at, this is what I do, this is my profession, and I'm going under the city ordinance. It does allow it to fit in under what they call transfer of goods or something, light manufacturing, something of that
Transfer
sort.
of dry goods, I believe. Something to that effect.
And I said, well, okay, but how did you determine that this was a light industry as opposed to heavy? And he says, well, it's under the city ordinance, that's why. I said, well, I don't agree with that. To make a long story short, I said, how do I appeal this decision? He says, well, you appeal to the city, then you appeal to the zoning board, and he gave me the whole way of making the appeal. So I said, okay, well, who do I appeal first? He said, you appeal to me. And I said, why would I appeal to you? I mean, that's what I'm doing now. Uh, appeal to you. I know what your decision is. You've already told me what it was. He says, well, that's just the way the city ordinance reads. You need to appeal to me. I said, well, all right, I'll appeal to you, but I know what the answer is going to be. He says, now put it in, and I respond within, I must respond within 10 days, and so on and so forth. So I put in the appeal the very next day. And that same day, it came back denied.
It probably took him longer to drive home from putting the appeal in than to get the denial on the appeal.
And when I turned it in, I kind of joked to the secretary or the other folks around there. I said, well, I'm here with the appeal. I know what the answer is going to be, so tell me what the next step is. Oh, no. Patrick will read it, he'll study it, he'll share it, he'll do this, that, and the other. I'm not going to say he did or didn't, but the turnaround was very quick on the denial. So my assumption is that there wasn't much of an appeal that was done. So after that, we go back to the city council, and I forget why. Well, I guess we just go back to city council, because in my opinion, that's who has the right to make the changes or appeals or whatever.
Was it not on the agenda, I think, for that following city council meeting? And it was for them simply to discuss the situation, since they felt like they had no authority. Is that correct?
Okay, yeah, that reminds me now. I think Councilwoman Farmer put it on the agenda to discuss about light manufacturing versus heavy manufacturing. And that was on the agenda, so that's why we went back then to the city council and again just made the case that this was not light, or it was, not to be considered light. And I did get a hold of the city ordinance. I looked at it, studied it, read it, and it appears that the city planning department only considered half of the ordinance, which made it fit into the light manufacturing section. But what they missed was the other side of the ordinance, which says you have to consider if there's going to be an impact on the surrounding area or the surrounding neighborhood. And if that impact is significant, or the way the ordinance reads, if it's obnoxious or negative in some way, and if the degree is pretty clear, then it should go under heavy manufacturing. So I came home and I told JoAnn, I said, I think there's a legal case to be made here. And of course the group, the Citizens Against the Sand, we kept meeting, and luckily, I think, Mr. Guy Choate, who I think is a Santa Rita resident, but I'm not sure, but I think he is, decided that he would then argue the appeal, which moved forward now to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So that's kind of where we are.
So you had to file, where did you take that appeal to the zoning board? Where do you turn that in?
Okay, we met with again, the Citizens Against the Sand. We met, and we pulled our $150, because that's what it cost to place the appeal. Goes back to the city planning manager, which is Patrick Howard's office, and Winky Wardlaw and I went to Patrick's office and turned in the appeal to Patrick. Patrick wasn't very happy that we were moving forward with this process. First he told us that it's not a good time to turn it in. You have to wait another day or another weekend. And
What was he basing that on?
He was basing that again on
The time frame that it needed to be able to be put on the agenda for the zoning board, because there was a time frame to get it turned in so that it could be put on the agenda, which he was trying to get it there.
I think 30 days is something of that nature. I mean, we were also concerned that we would miss the day. But more than that, we just wanted to make sure that we put it in plenty of time so that it didn't get lost under the paperwork, or because by now we're a little suspicious of the way this is going on.
And when you say suspicious, because why?
Just suspicious because I don't, from the very beginning when Councilman Silvas calls me and tells me I have no idea what's going on, I still think that he did know. The way the planning director has responded to some of our questions, not so much that he didn't give us the information, but it was just the attitude in which it was done. It was almost like, you know, don't bother me with it. I mean, yeah, you can do your appeal, but you appeal it to me. And I mean, it just, you know, I've been working with public for a long, long time. And one of the things I've learned is that you give people an opportunity to say what they need to say, treat them with respect, listen diligently, and then whatever comments need to be made are made. But in the times that I was there, it was kind of like I was bothering them. You walk into the city council planning, or not the council, but the planning department, and if you don't know exactly where you need to go, you're almost like lost. You're looking around and nobody is there to say, can I help you? Nobody's there to direct you. It's just the whole thing just doesn't seem like it's being run in a very efficient manner. And I'm talking about the city planning. I don't know anything else about the city itself.
That's where you're having to deal, is back with the planning department. So when you gave him the appeal to the zoning board, which would be the second time you've brought an appeal into his office, what was his reaction that time?
Well, his reaction was, I can't take it at this moment. It's not time. It's not going to be within the time frame, or it's too early. Like I said, Winky, Wardlaw, and I were there, and he started raising his voice towards Mr. Wardlaw in an unprofessional manner. I think it was uncalled for. He was very defensive and said, I'm just interpreting the city ordinance the way I know that it should be interpreted, and I've been in this business X number of years. I know what I'm doing. So that's just the way it's going to be. And of course, there was an exchange of high-pitched voices at that moment, to the point where other staff members started to look in the doorway and say, you know, is everything okay? And it was, and I tried to be the peacemaker between Patrick and Winky, and I would say, well, can I say something? And he would just say, no. Let me finish what I'm saying. And I'm going like, okay. So they continue their exchange, and then I would, at one point, I raised my hand, like a school student. I raised my hand. Can I say something? No. It's not your turn yet. Let me finish.
So is that Patrick Howard that's telling you no?
Patrick is refusing to let me say anything. And finally I just kind of interrupted and butted my way in, and I said, look, we're not here to, you know, we just want to turn in this appeal. And he said, well, it's not the time for it. And then he turned on his computer, and I don't know what he would read, but then he said, okay, I can take it today. Which is what Winky was saying, you can take it today. So finally that was kind of done, and we just left.
So I've got to ask you, as a citizen who is following proper procedure as laid out in the city codes, ordinances, whatever, how did that feel to, you're walking things through in the correct steps and you're turning this in as Patrick Howard, I believe, initially told you this was the process, and then to have what sounds like a really negative experience in doing so?
I was very disappointed in the process itself, the way that we were treated, the way, just the protocol. The whole thing was just negative. Confrontational would be a good word, but the confrontation wasn't intentional for us. We just went in to turn in the appeal. The reaction was confrontational, and human nature just kind of takes over, and you have not a good situation. But I'm disappointed with that part of it, but I'm also disappointed with the city manager. And I pointed that out to him at one of my comments at city council. I just point blank asked the city manager, where have you been? I mean, you're the city manager. And you're absent from this process. You haven't said a word about it. You haven't made your opinion known, either by choice or by design. You're being shut out of this process, and you're the city manager. Toward the end of the meeting, his reaction was, or his comment was, that he's lost sleep over it, and he's
very concerned about the community. And
concerned about it, and of course I didn't say anything else, but again, my opinion is, if you are concerned, if this is weighing hard on your mind, then why haven't you said anything? And I haven't had a chance to visit with him since, but if I could, I'd ask him the question, were you ever in on the discussion on the initial appeal? Because when you appeal to Patrick Howard's office, my question would be, did Patrick ever come to you as the boss, the city manager, and say, boss, I've got this appeal. What do you think? Where are you?
Yeah.
And I'm disappointed in the city manager, I'm disappointed in the planning department, and I'm disappointed in my city councilman.
Well, and a lot of the phone calls that Jesse has been making, he called our city manager and left a message and asked for a return phone call, which has yet to happen.
So, yeah, the whole thing is just...
Okay, so you filed the official appeal to the zoning board. Okay. So what was the next step then? There was I guess the zoning board meeting in November. You were in attendance at?
I'm kind of, yes, the zoning board meeting in November.
Which is when we thought that everything was going to come to light and that it was going to be heard.
Was to, let me see, I think the zoning board meeting was,
Okay. I wasn't at that one. The December one, I believe, is the date you're referring to on
The
the...
November one was when y'all went, and that's when that other incident happened, that Patrick Howard wanted to have that private meeting with the board.
Oh, yeah, at the November meeting, at the November zone, now we know we need to go to the zoning board. So city council is off to the side. Now we're dealing with the zoning board. So at the November meeting, we went there because we wanted to make sure that the appeal was going to take place and they were going to hear it. And we just went to make sure that that was going to occur. Of course, they had their regular meeting. They took care of business, 10 minutes, meeting's over, except the final agenda item was to set the appeal hearing for this particular issue. At that meeting, Patrick then says to the zoning board that before the meeting takes place, he wants to have an executive meeting with the zoning board. Mr. Wardlaw, being co-counsel, now approaches the podium and says, we don't think that that is fair, that you're going to have a meeting without the appellants present. So then Patrick says, well, okay, then we'll call it a workshop. We'll have a workshop, and it'll be public, but without any public input. In other words, just me and you. And if it can be an executive session, then we'll have it, but nobody can have any input. To which, again, that's not right, and that's not fair, that's just not the way democracy works. So then he backs up and says, well, we just need to give us an opportunity, us meaning the city planning, an opportunity to guide you as to how the decisions are made and moving forward, how you need to treat this appeal. Of course,
Well, and at that time is when he said something about having the attorney, the city attorney look at.
yeah, city attorney then was to look at certain things and etc. So they went ahead and set the meeting for December 1st.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the appeal was scheduled to be heard. So they had they set the date, they set the appeal hearing. So we waited for December 1st to come, and
So what are you doing in the process of all that time?
in the meantime, we're gathering information, we're gathering videos, we're visiting Hugh
Getting
Street.
signatures, talking to people, neighbors are still coming over, people are still knocking on the door. Jesse's on the phone all the time talking to people about, people are calling saying they, worked around this kind of stuff. They've had friends who have died from this kind of stuff, telling us just story after story after story and how it's going to impact them in their homes, us in our homes, the whole neighborhood. I mean, just the same thing that we've been all saying all along.
How does that feel? I mean, I've never been in that kind of, those shoes. How does that feel to me? I would think helpless or...
Helpless, but at the same time it angers you that this is going to even be considered, right next door. Literally. It's not like you're getting a new neighbor. Your new neighbor is going to be basically a death sentence. In other words.
Wow. So a lot of work, a lot of talk, a lot, and a lot of people involvement.
Yeah, we even go to restaurants and, people are saying, where do I sign the petition? Yeah. I mean, I think JoAnn you got a Facebook page?
I did a Facebook page called Citizens Against San Depot where we update because so many people want to know what's going on. So every time something else is going on or a new video comes out, like the one that you just did with your story on Barnhart, I just upload and anybody can upload information about, sand fracking facilities, and they can tell their stories, and there's an online petition that you can sign, and the links are all there, and it's Citizens Against San Depot, and that's where we have our information out for everybody.
So you've been in full-blown 100% action, making contacts and trying to inform people and get the word out, because this wasn't well publicized. And the community, to this day, I'm still amazed at how many people are not aware that this is even going on. All right, so all of this was going on. You walk in December 1st, or that's the next zoning. So pick up your story there.
Well, the next meeting is December 1st, and maybe like November 28th or 29th.
Thanksgiving holiday.
Something to that, yeah, right there, we get notice that the hearing is going to be delayed.
Why?
I did have a conversation again with Patrick Howard, and he says, well, we didn't follow the protocol on setting the hearing. I said, Patrick, that's what we did.
At this first meeting, the
in
past
November. The meeting's been set. The zoning board set it. And he says, well, according to the city attorney, we have to have another meeting to set a protocol in terms of who the appellants are. We need to set the rules for the hearing. And he mentioned 3 or 4 protocol things that need to happen.
Are there not already rules in place for handling appeal? It sounds interesting that that's having to be created.
Well, I don't know if it's being created. It could be one possibility. The other one is they don't know to begin with what the protocol is.
Okay.
And third, they're making it up as they go. I mean, like I said,
We don't know how many appeals they deal with. So
That's a good question.
there's suspicion that's why I'm suspicious of the whole operation.
I mean, we want to give the benefit of the doubt, right? I mean, these are people who are supposed to be working on your behalf because they are employed by the city, and of course you expect them to be working on your behalf. But at the same time, you know, after so many things don't fall into place the way that they're supposed to, it just makes you wonder what's really going on.
So we get to the December meeting. The zoning board goes through their agenda again, and then it comes to where they have to identify who the appellants are. They identify a new hearing date and rules of engagement. By then, Mr. Pfluger has an attorney also working on his behalf. Our attorney, knowing that there was not going to be a hearing, had other things that he had to do, so Mr. Wardlaw kind of took the lead as a co-counsel. And at that meeting, he did try to leave some information with the zoning board members, emphasizing the law itself, the ordinance about light versus heavy. We had some petitions that we wanted to turn in. We had some videos that we wanted to turn in. And the city attorney said, no, you cannot submit any evidentiary type information.
It's not a good idea.
You can't do it. You're not supposed to do it. And we're going like, why not? Even some of the zoning board members said, I want this information. I don't want it 15 minutes ahead of time. Mm-hmm. This is too important to just leave and you know, do it 15 minutes before we're going to make a decision. But the city attorney said, no, that's not within your legal rights to do, or whatever, however she phrased it. And then it was suggested maybe that they go and see the facility,
visit the site
at Hughes Street, maybe go visit the facility at Barnhart. And a few of the board members kind of nodded and they said, well, maybe that's a good idea. And the city manager again jumped in and said,
Attorney.
I'm sorry, the city attorney jumped in and said, I advise you not to do that. Why? I don't know. Still don't know. But the interesting thing that has developed now is that the city attorney, or in conjunction with the planning department, has come up with a new a proposal that now the zoning board can go visit these sites, and they can receive some information about this facility, so that they can be prepared at the hearing, which is now February 3rd, I believe. So that's kind of where we are.
Now there is another zoning board meeting on January the 5th. If I remember correctly from the December 1st meeting, at the January 5th meeting they are to solidify that the hearing will actually be February 2nd, since Council Guy Choate was not able to be there to confirm that date for availability.
That is correct.
Is that correct?
They will validate that February date. proposal, we will be able to, if they approve it, which I think they will, and if they do vote affirmative on that new proposed rule, then we can submit the original information that we wanted to submit, a month ago, plus whatever else we want to get into the hands of the zoning board members. So right now, we do plan to be at that January 5th meeting. We don't present anything other than if they approve it, we'll present the information we have. But not only that, we just want to make sure that something else doesn't come up. I mean, like I said, we want to be trustful, but at the same time we're very cautious because of the way the whole process has evolved.
Is there any additional work or anything going on the site location at this time?
No, there has not been any work. I mean, really by ordinance also, once the appeal was filed, it stayed all
So you have this holding period
Yes,
until a determination is made by the zoning board.
yes.
Are you prepared for whatever their decision is, whichever direction it goes?
I think we have done good work in trying to prevent this facility. We're hoping, and we feel very strongly that we have the winning argument legally by city ordinance. Light versus heavy, when you look at the impact on the neighborhood, and you've heard all the arguments, the safety impact, the traffic impact, and the property going down, that's going to happen. And your stories that have come out from Barnhart.
I was shocked when I was in Barnhart. I did not realize the sound, and it never stops. And that was one of the strongest impacts on me, was to hear this continuous roar of trucks.
Well, that's a glimpse of our future, and if it passes, what you see in Barnhart will be what will occur just 200 feet from here.
How many years have you been in this home?
In this particular home, maybe 10 years, but I live next door to my parents' home, which they are next door. Lived there, a large part of my life, and now I'm back here. So in total, I've lived on this street maybe 40 years. And it's a very modest neighborhood. We don't have 2 stories or pools in the back. Matter of fact, if we had a pool, I don't think we could maintain it.
You wouldn't be able to use it at that point.
But, that's beside the point. But we're proud of what we do have. And we want to maintain what we have. We want to maintain the quality of life for our kids that are still riding their bicycles on the street. Or JoAnn and I will take walks in the evening.
Will you be able to do that if that goes in?
No.
Well, not to the extent that we're going to feel comfortable doing it. I mean, you still have to go on with your life, but it's going to limit the amount of time that you're going to want to be outside. It's going to limit, because you don't want to be outside breathing in that dust that comes in, even though they say that it's not going to fly, because that was part of our conversation with Mr. Pfluger when we met with Mr. Pfluger when all this came about. And he was
So y'all personally met with?
Yes.
Tell me about that meeting.
Well, initially when I went to the first city council meeting, I did get a call, I guess from one of his staff members, that he had requested that I go to his office and meet with him. So JoAnn and I went, very friendly, very a nice man. I mean, I think he's done a lot of good things for our community. I wish him the best of luck in his financial endeavors. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, the question, I think, in everybody's mind is not the business itself, it's the location.
Yes.
That's the only argument I've heard anyone come against on that.
And that's what we told him. I think he initially said, I have to do something with this land that I've purchased. I think he owns maybe 3/4 of Pacifico Railways, which runs across Texas. and he says, but I need to do something with this
With this particular piece of land.
He did mention that he wanted what? Storage?
He had talked about doing some storage facilities back there, you know, like the little rental storage units. But he did say that Mr. Mayfield was not in favor of that, and that Mr. Mayfield didn't particularly care for that kind of business back there. I don't think that Mr. Mayfield is particularly fond of the business that he's proposing now. But I mean, in all of that conversation, you know, when he was explaining to us the process of the trucks coming in, the way that the sand would get loaded into the trucks, how you hook up to the bottom of the car and it goes up this conveyor belt, and then, you know, the boot up on the top that loads it into the truck, and it's minimal dust and the dust isn't going to fly. And he was telling us how it's round sand, and round sand doesn't fly, that sand has to be flat in order to fly. And we were like, the dust is going to fly. This is West Texas, you know? I mean, you get a nice March wind in here and you're going to have dust everywhere. You know, it just depends on which direction the wind is blowing as to where the sand is going to end up. And so, you know, through the videos that we've seen and that we've taken over at Hughes Street, just, you know, going out there and looking at Hughes Street, you know, that stuff is flying everywhere. And even just in their preparation of the area here where they're clearing it out and there's just caliche dust. I mean, there was no point in me coming home and dusting. I mean, you could come home at any point in time and write your name, address, anything you wanted on any piece of furniture you wanted. It was ridiculous.
But his comment to me was, and still is, it's only business. For me. That's for him speaking. It's just business. And yes, it is business for you, but it's our life that we're impacting. Yeah. And
well
that's
said.
where we are.
So people that are listening to this video and have heard your story, if they want to help, get involved some way, what can they do? How can they contact you? What would you like for them to do?
JoAnn's a PR person.
Well, Jesse is retired, so he gets to answer all of the phone calls, and anybody can reach him at his phone number. It's 325-374-8279. His email is justiceiscoming22@yahoo.com. We do have the Facebook page, Citizens Against Sand Depot. There is the online petition. The link is on that Facebook page. They can go and sign it. You know, at this point, that's where we're at. Showing up at the meetings, just showing up with the numbers, I think, you know, showing up in the huge numbers just shows that the community is not ready for this facility to go into the middle of San Angelo. You know, we joke all the time and say, you know, poor Denny's is going to have to change their menu to sand and eggs instead of, you know, whatever it is they're serving now, because that's just the impact that it's going to have. You know, people aren't going to be able to go outside. I'm not going to want my grandkids in my front yard or my backyard. This is not going to be the place where we have Easter egg hunts anymore. This is not going to be the place where we gather for Thanksgiving or Christmas anymore. And if that doesn't create an impact, then I don't know what does.
I don't know what else can be said after that. That says it all. I appreciate very much your time this afternoon and encourage the viewers of this video to take action, stand with the Martinezes and the other people who are joining together to stop this potential, I've said it too many times, frac sand transloading facility on Hill Street in the heart of San Angelo. Thank you very much.
Thank you.